Hi, this is Joe. You are about to listen to the very first episode that we recorded, and it's a little rough. Well, to be honest, they're all a little rough, but this one's even rougher. This was, like I said, it's the first one we recorded. We were using a different program than we're using now. And if that bothers you, skip this episode. Go on to some future thing where we're learning to do it better. Anyway, that's it. This is Decahedron, episode 1. Thanks for listening.
This is the Decahedron Podcast with Joe and James, two old dudes talking about RPG stuff.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm James.
And this is the Decahedron Podcast. It's a really short little podcast that we do every week, just talking about whatever tickles our fancy in RPG type stuff. Sometimes it'll be old school D&D. Other times it'll be whatever we're doing. This week's topic was by James, and it's about old school D&D type stuff. And the topic is
damage from weapons.
specifically
What we should what should the be from a weapon? Should it be fixed, or should we be using multiple amounts?
So, like in going back historically, the very first edition, 1974 D&D, every attack, if you hit, did 1d6 damage. Starting with the Greyhawk supplement in 1975, the damage suddenly changed, and depending on which weapon you used, did different amounts of damage. Maybe a 1d6 for a longsword, 1d4 for a dagger, that type thing. And just to go a bit more in the history, later on, when they split off the game into Dungeons & Dragons and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, D&D got the old 1d6 for everything back, and AD&D went with the variable weapon damage, as I call it. Does that sum everything up, James?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it does.
So I'm going to give you my opinion. And my opinion is that the original way was better. And I think that was better because mathematically, characters had a 1d6 hit die and weapons did a 1d6 damage. So what you were really measuring was, would this attack be enough to kill a normal person? That's what a hit was. If you got the hit, if you did the damage, it would 50-50 shot that would kill you. Actually, slightly better than 50-50 because the way math works, but whatever. And so when you look at damage that way, I think it works well. The other reason I like it is it allows players, I was going to say characters, allows players to make their characters to fit the image that they want. Like you, for example, I've been DMing you for decades now. You like your characters to have two weapons. And you don't do it, at least I don't think you do it. I don't think you do it because you're a munchkin or anything. You're trying to get as many attacks or damage you want. You do it because in your head, you can picture that character. And when he has two clubs, one in each hand, that just looks as cool as heck for you. And that's what you want. And by having a fixed amount of damage, it lets you do that without throwing the game out of whack. And if you have that character who wants to play the little thief with two daggers, he's not taking a penalty for playing the character he wants. He still gets the same damage he would have gotten. Those are my arguments. Speak.
I see your points on that there, definitely. And you're right. It's since the beginning, I've always have my characters in some type of image, something, sometimes myself or a character from a movie that it made me think of. The two weapons, it's just it's me on that part. I've never been one for a defensive thing when it comes to fighting. But for the weapons, I'm going to be on the opposite side. I understand what you're saying about the equal all the way through, but how can a dagger do 1d6 and let's say, for an example, a battle axe, a massive thing, do 1d6. In my view, it should be doing more damage than a dagger. And I think I'm looking at it as a mindset in the game. I do want to make a character look interesting. I've done, especially in the advanced games, I've done all types of weapons. I just don't stick with the longsword. I've done the chain Matagari
Oh,
and other
yeah.
weapons that make the character interesting to my point of view. And that's what it is to me. There are people, I want that battle axe because it does, and I'm not remembering the damage anymore, a 1d12 or a 2d, and it just does more damage. There are people like that, but to me, you have to make a character interesting. Does that make
Right.
sense?
And actually that's my argument, is that by keeping the damage all the same, you can make that character interesting, and you are not penalized or what's the opposite of penalty? Benefited by it. You're making the character you want, and there's no game effect, so there's no problem in doing that. Again, as with about every topic we're ever going to discuss, neither of us is wrong. We are both right, and because it's what we prefer, it's what we like. It is what it is. I did have one other counter argument. It left out of my mind as you were talking. Different damages. I will say that like every DM, I'm also a frustrated game designer. While
Understatement.
while in my games, I tend to keep the damage the same for the weapons. I do have them respond differently to armor. So you were saying you thought that an axe should do more than a knife. Either one can kill you, right? I mean, you get stabbed or you get hit with an axe, you're going to die. So that's why I don't see that they need to be different. However, if you go up against a guy wearing plate, I'd much rather face it. Yeah, plate mail. I'd much rather face him with an axe than a knife. And so in my games, while they do the same damage, the axe is more likely to exceed the armor than the knife is. But that's not D&D. That's weird things of my own creation. But that's all I had to say. Did you have anything?
Yeah, I'm going to bring up your point. So what you were saying, actually a dagger is against the armor in one way. You can slit it into the smaller areas, where the axe has to do a brute force and actually bend the armor into the body to make it uncomfortable or even damaging the person.
Yes. Well, of course, the armor has
thinking,
much more mass and leverage involved, so it's going to be easier for it to do that. But yes, but for the one little slot thing, that's when you get really lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Or your opponent's immobilized. If your opponent's immobilized, why bother? Just say he's dead. None of it matters. So yeah, the lucky thing, like I said, in the systems I come up with, that's accounted for because the dagger is less likely to pierce the armor. But if it does just as much damage.
Now, the other thing you do is you do a much more story-based ventures, at least all the ones me and you have done, where I'm just going to say a normal, regular DM who's just in there for the battle, or the players that are in there just to let me hit something, not story-based. The different weapons may make a little more.
So yeah, definitely. If you are running a tabletop miniatures combat game, that's a tactical decision. Makes 100% sense that you would want to go into nitpicky details, and that is almost gives you the weapon speed chart from first edition AD&D and weapon versus armor from first edition AD&D that I don't think anybody ever really used, but it was there and said that this weapon versus that armor, you get that plus or that negative. too much for me, not my style of gaming. I know that there's people out there that like it. Go for it.
Oh,
You have fun.
I tried it. Well, I should say our group tried it once, and it just slowed down the combat meagerly, especially when you had to look up the charts. As a matter of fact, thing that new players, there was a chart that made up that turn disc where it gave you what you needed to hit against the different armor types. I'm gonna have to see if I can get mine and send you a picture of it, or do you have one of those you could post on here?
It was in an old issue of Dragon magazine, wasn't it? You could cut it
Yes.
out and put it together.
Yes.
I bought the Dragon magazine CD compilation years ago, so I'm sure I have that. I'm gonna have to see if I can dig that up. Anyway, we're running along. Did you have anything
Okay.
else? So until next week, I'm Joe.
I'm James.
Have a great one.
Adios. Bye.
You have been listening to the Decahedron Podcast. Send email to feedback@decahedron.com. Remember to spell decahedron with a K. Voice feedback can be sent through the Anchor website or by calling 562-RPG-CAST. That's 562-774-2278. Links are in the show notes. Music is courtesy of Kevin MacLeod, logo by Design Cat. Thanks for listening.